This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
What's going on, Patriots post-game show? John Zannis, Greg Bedard from Foxborough, where the Patriots dismantle the Browns 32-13, a game that didn't always look like it was going to end this way, but eventually the Patriots offense got rolling. The Browns offense did what the Browns offense does, which is stink. And the Patriots defense held up, kind of kept them off the board here. And they roll 32-13, fifth straight win. We'll start, Greg. We start every show with Drake Maye, but it is interesting how this one played out. And you wrote about this during the week at Boston Sports Journal. And sorry, before we do start, quick shout out to our sponsors over at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Use the code CLNS. You see it here on the screen. 50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Check it out today. We also want to tell you guys about Omaha Steaks. Use code Patriots at checkout if you want some nice juicy steaks delivered to you now or in time for Christmas. You get $35 off, including a 50% off site-wide sale going on right now at Omaha Steaks. So go check that out. So back to the game, Greg. You said it, like they just got to be smart and manage it. It's going to be the toughest test they have. It's a real Browns defense. They're going to have problems. They're never going to want to see Myles Garrett ever again after what he did. Offensive line struggled. The receivers couldn't really get open. Drake turned it over first time he'd done that in a few weeks. And they kind of put themselves in a position where this could have gone a couple of different ways if the Browns had a little more potent offense. Thankfully, they didn't. So the Patriots were able to hang in there, end up taking a halftime lead, and then they just took off from there. But describe at least what you saw in the first half with what was going on with that offense and the Patriots really kind of, again, struggling to protect Maye. Maybe he was holding it on too long. How did you see that all playing out with all of the difficulties that they had?
Yeah, I mean, largely it went about how I expected. The turnovers in the second half, especially Spillane's interception, then the Patriots scoring 3 plays after that, really changed the game and got the game on their terms. You knew that once the Patriots got up 2 scores, the Browns were in a lot of trouble because Dillon Gabriel was not going to be able to, without the aid of a real run game, and we know how the Patriots shut down the run game, he wasn't going to be able to drive the team down the field like he did on the opening drive. But I thought the first half was just kind of it's exactly what I wrote about like Maye. We weren't really sure how he was going to react to it. This game was going to be imperfect, and at times it was going to be a slog. At times you're going to have to go 3 runs or 2 runs and an incompletion and punt the ball away and just have to deal with that and deal with pressure from Myles Garrett and just, keep on going and just have the discipline to understand that's what kind of game you're in, that it's probably going to be low scoring for a while. You just don't want to make the big mistake. It looked like maybe Maye did have the big mistake with the interception to Schlesinger. But the defense held. They missed the field goal. That was a big chance for the Browns to get up by a score. They blew it. I thought Drake Maye did really well. Like he easily could have gotten flustered, sped up with the pressure that was going on. Myles Garrett is just, he's not of the human race. He's something completely different. The Patriots tried a bunch of different things, to slow him down. Will Campbell, tried, but Myles Garrett is going to do Myles Garrett things. And that Drake Maye kept his head about him. I thought, his best sequence was the 26-yard run, and then he throws the touchdown to Booty on the next play with great patience in the pocket, great touch, just a perfect ball to Booty, that he was able to stay level-headed through all of that, I think was a big check mark for him to this point.
Yeah, and I think that was great for Maye, and I do think in terms of analyzing quarterback play, he was struggling a little bit early. And again, you have people kind of like, well, that's what happens when you face a real team. And again, that was exactly it. Sometimes it's just going to play hard. Like it's not always going to be just, just find everybody open, and march your way down the field on every drive. But you and I talked about it off air. The thing that really opened it up, I thought, was that drive where they got creative. Okay. So things
Yeah.
weren't working out, and McDaniels really got in his bag. The sequence that included a double pass to Hollins, where Maye again had to stand in there and take a big hit. That play wasn't great, but it was completed. Then you have a little kind of mini option to Stevenson to loosen things up a little bit there. Then you run the jet sweep to DeMario, and then you fake the jet sweep to Diggs, and he rolls out, gets out on a boot, finds Hunter Henry, and bing, 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 4 really schemed up plays there. And, they're off and running after that. So that was nice by McDaniels to kind of figure out, like, we got to kind of do something a little bit different than what we've been doing by just kind of standing in the pocket and dealing with this onslaught.
Yeah, and I'm sure, some of the questions are going to be like, well, and even some of the perimeter runs, the tosses to TreVeyon Henderson, that we saw, people are going to be like, well, why don't we do that all the time? I mean, you can't do that all the time, or else they start keying on that.
Right.
You have to keep them balanced. You have to mix in the interior stuff that really wasn't working very well, with the outside. And then, you also want to keep some of the stuff into your back pocket until you really need it, and them grabbing the lead right before halftime and then coming out on the first drive of the second half and Josh saying, like, all right, it's time to pull some of this stuff out. This is the right time. Really allowed them to get going, a lot of wide open stuff, a little end around the throw to Hunter Henry. He was wide open. That's a play caller type sort of drive right there from Josh McDaniels. So to give the team a little bit more breathing room, relax everybody, and, for Drake Maye to throw 3 touchdown passes in the third quarter, that's just great stuff.
Yeah, and it almost feels like an old Patriots sort of win, right? Which is like, letting them hang around, playing with your food doesn't quite work, and then bing, bang, bang, the floodgates open, and that was that. It really was basically the third quarter where things just opened up, and they completely put them away. You mentioned Henderson. Everyone's been dying to see him get going. It's surprising, and again, this is still the early unofficial snap count from PFF. Only 14 snaps. Is that right? Based on one looking at it, felt like he was on the field more. He just basically got the ball almost every time he was out there, and they were trying to get it in his hands on a lot of those toss sweeps and different things. But again, I will say in that regard, I'm not going to say it's about time, but it does make a lot more sense with someone with his skill set to try to get him in space a little bit more. And to his credit, he ran better. He was more patient. There were a couple of times where he did start to the outside, and you saw him actually wait for blocks to develop as opposed to just running right up into somebody's backside. So I thought overall a better job by him today, even though they did scheme it up a little bit differently for him, and they did make a concerted effort to get him involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we've been talking about it for a few weeks. I thought it might have happened last week. It didn't. But I figured it was coming with Henderson. The game slows down for a lot of these kids at different points. And, it's starting to, I would say this was a mini breakout game for Henderson. And, it's sure, you'd love to run on the perimeter, but you're also worried about those are the plays that have the best chance to go for negative plays.
Negative yards,
and
right.
I think, yeah. And I think that, where they are as an offense, they really aren't interested in that. They want to, keep the negative plays to a minimum. And, some of the perimeter blocking that they have, with some, Diggs and Douglas aren't exactly known for their blocking, even though they've done it at times this year. The tight ends haven't been great blocking. And also the biggest thing is the second level. I think on TreVeyon Henderson's biggest run, I forget what it was, like 18, 19 yards, which was sort of like a toss to the outside. I mean, you had Morgan Moses out there with a block. You had Micah Wenu. I think you even had Jared Wilson. There were guys, executing on the second level, which we haven't seen, which I would say is the biggest reason why Henderson has, struggled to pop any big ones. A lot of the smaller ones, instead of getting 5 or 7 yards, he's been getting 2 or 3 because he's running into the back. He's the backs of guys. He's not being patient. And I think today was a big step forward from him. And they're going to need that. They need his speed as a threat. And, once they really get that going, I think it really opens up a lot more things in this offense.
When we talked about the offense in the first half, what do you think was giving them the most problems there? Was it that the receivers were just not getting open and Maye just couldn't get it out quickly, or it was just the pressure kind of freaked him out?
Yeah, I thought the coverage from the Browns, was pretty good. I would say most of it was the pressure. I mean, I think the Browns did a pretty good job of sort of collapsing the pocket, and they're really athletic, at linebacker and safety, and so that presents, coverage issues. But it's a damn good defense, and you're going to have drives like that. You just have to have the patience and discipline to keep going, stick with your plan. And, some things might pop. I mean, they were lucky. I'm sure when we look back, some of the busts that they were able to get the Browns on, there was a play to Hooper. I think there was one to Stevenson. I'm sure those things were set up earlier with a certain look that they gave the Browns. So sometimes you got to sprinkle those in early and they pay off a little bit later. But you just have to have the patience. I did think one nitpick of McDaniels I had was looking back at it at halftime. Their pass run had gotten out of balance. I think they were like 65% pass in the first half in a pretty tight game. And that's probably not where they wanted to be. And I thought they hit the ground running, no pun intended, a little bit more in the second half to sort of even those things out and keep the Browns a little bit more balanced.
Talking about the pressure that rattled them in the first half again, Myles Garrett, otherworldly, as you tweeted and you said here, he's not a human being. So you're not going to get mad necessarily at what went on, but it looked, in addition to it being, and again, you have a better eye for this. So in addition to him just being a physically dominant, individual that's difficult to deal with, I felt like the Patriots were almost confusing themselves every time that they tried to double or chip him. Like sometimes just somebody was, Campbell would look in the wrong direction. He'd get chipped and he'd turn to get somebody who was coming on the inside. It looked like they were struggling to figure it out, in addition to just being overpowered sometimes, or just, Campbell just getting beaten to the outside, even though, somebody chipped Garrett to start the play. It felt like the help wasn't helping.
Yeah, you get that a lot. And, there are definitely veteran left tackles that will tell you, I don't want help. I don't want to chip. It messes me up more than anything. I mean, it takes a lot of teamwork and a lot of time to be able to properly execute that. And these guys, I mean, Will Campbell's a rookie, so they don't have that. But I mean, everything has to be on the same page, guys aligning the right way, and of course you have a superhuman like Myles Garrett, who's not exactly going to do anything as you planned it. But you can't do nothing, because there's no chance if they left Will Campbell out there on an island with Myles Garrett, he would have got his lunch taken from him. And, that did happen at times today, but I'm sure Will be better for it. And, you try to do certain different things, it's a running back chip one time, it's a tight end chip, then you're pulling somebody and helping, like you're just trying to change the different looks. And that's not always going to look pretty, but it's what's required. And hopefully this type of thing and watching the film and how they executed this will pay off, later down the line when they're dealing with some other really good edge rushers.
Yeah, and again, take it for what it's worth. Everybody's going to look at it and analyze things differently. And, you have a lot of people who say take PFF grades and throw them in the trash. But amazingly, Will Campbell's PFF grade for this game is actually decent. So especially on the pass block side, he's the third highest graded player on the offense. First it's Hollins, second it's Maye, and third it's Will Campbell. And that doesn't really feel like it passes the eye test from what happened today.
Yeah, I mean, those PFF grades, it's hard to tell, like, what do they do when a guy gets help? I mean, does that count as like a great rep for Will Campbell? That's why I keep my own stats, and we'll see the way that it comes out. But I thought he did a pretty good job for the most part. I also noticed him a little bit more in the run game today. So, that was really good. And the thing is with this Browns front, it's not just Myles Garrett. Mack Hollins is a beast as well on the interior, and I'll be interested to see how they handled him as well.
Yeah. So a little nugget that came out post game, I think it's worth talking about because we didn't notice it until he made a big play in the second quarter. But Christian Barmore apparently did some sort of no-no, and Mike Vrabel indicated in the post-game press conference that he was essentially benched for the first quarter for disciplinary reasons, or the quote was something along the lines of not commensurate with what we're, trying to, get done. And he said, he had to do something like this to protect his team. We're not going to speculate what it is, but that obviously isn't great. Good that he got himself back in there, but definitely a little bit of a development to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think with just a quarter sitting on the bench, I don't think it could have been, all that serious. If it was, I think they would have deactivated him and probably sent him home. So hopefully it was just being something minor, even though Vrabel doesn't have all that many rules. And even if, one of them is be on time, and he has said to the team, like, even if you can't be on time, as long as you let somebody know, like, they'll probably let it go. It's not exactly like, Bill Belichick's reign around here, where with Snowgate,
the Jetsons,
what have you. Yeah. So yeah, but it's never good. I mean, it's a little bit disappointing because Christian is an important player. He's been playing terrific. I thought even when he got out there today, last I looked on PFF, they had him for a team leading 4 pressures, and that's only in 3 quarters, probably really only 2 quarters, considering the blowout nature in the fourth quarter. But he's been, basically playing like flawless over the last, I want to say, like 4 games, maybe 5, including today. So hopefully he, learns a lesson in his 5 from here, because he is a very important guy up front for the Patriots. And I mean, we should mention the defense. Again, this wasn't the greatest test in the world. I thought the Browns would be lucky to get a touchdown today. They ended up getting 2, 1 in garbage time. But they gave up 70 yards, I think, on the first possession, 7 plays, 70 yards, 10 yards a clip. And then the next 7 possessions, they gave up 58 yards total. So, good job by them. And, but once the game got to 2 scores, that's pretty much game over and advantage Patriots, because there's no way Dylan Gabriel is going to be able to make plays. The Browns were terrible on 3rd down. You get the Browns into 3rd and long, it's pretty much over, because Dylan Gabriel at this point is not a real NFL quarterback, and the Patriots made him look like one today.
Tell you about our pals over at Prize Picks, and you know everything about it by now. All you have to do is pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It's there on your screen. The #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Lots of great deals that you can have throughout, which is, free squares, lots of promotions, in addition to the one where you can see it on the screen. You download the app, use that code CLNS, get 50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, code CLNS, get 50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. As we said with Prize Picks, lots of cool opportunities here to win cash up to 2,000 times your cash. 2 to 6 players, got to be on different teams, can be different sports, doesn't really matter. We also offer injury reboots. Somebody gets hurt, they don't come back. One of your players leaves in the first half. It happened today. Cam Scadaboo, prayers up. Prize Picks is going to remove that. It's off the board. Also, you have a flex play. You can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Lots of good options there. So once again, download that app, use code CLNS, get 50 in your lineups when you play your first $5 lineups. Check it out. Yeah, things are going to get noisy in Cleveland. They're heading into their bye. Gabriel was given a seal of approval, at least, that he'll be starting when they get out of the bye, but that drum beat's going to get louder and things are going to get funky there. Quick round the horn with the Patriots receivers. And again, Greg, you've always been on the they've got enough weapons to be able to be okay. And as it goes on, you're starting to kind of, it again feels very much like a vintage Patriots team of just throw to the open guy. And you've now got contributions from everybody. And I'm starting with the guy that I liked the least, I guess. I didn't really understand what his point was with Mack Hollins. He's been reliable lately. It's almost like you forget he exists, and all of a sudden he makes, 1 big play, 2 big plays, multiple big plays here. 7 receptions, 89 yards today. And we know that he does, he contributes to the run game as well. Not bad for a guy. A lot of people are clamoring for, hit the bricks. I want to see Kyle Williams instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Mack's a really good player. He certainly got off to a slow start in this system, and you're not the only one who's sort of questioning, all right, what are we doing? I was, beginning to think, like, is this like little Jordan Humphreys all over again? Like the guy's just
Right.
out there to block. How about the pass game? But they're getting him involved more. I think, the thing with Mack Hollins is having him on the field and the threat of him blocking. You do that a couple times, and then all of a sudden, you fake the block, and then he pops a pass, and you get an open guy, and he's very valuable. He's very clutch. Wait till you see him, at the end of games when they're in some tighter games. He's a guy that you can really rely on. He did that for the Bills, last year as well. But yeah, Mack Hollins is a good player.
Yeah, and then Booty keeps doing it there. And again, the touchdown wasn't just a beautiful ball by Maye. It was great. Absolutely drops it in the bucket. But nice little double move there to create separation. He's just been nice. Is he like, do you feel like this is, again, we're not talking about what they have this year. Is this one of the positions you're like, they're okay here with this guy? Like he can play for me, or you're still looking for major upgrades all across the board at all the receiver positions down the road next year, or even immediately trade deadline? Are you still looking for more, or are you starting to feel like, I think Booty can be, at least a number 2 receiver on this team?
Yeah, I'm not really looking at receiver. I'm not concerned about that. I'm more worried about the defense and their ability to get stops against real NFL offenses, which we, haven't seen in a few weeks. I don't even know if we're going to see one next week, considering what happened to the Falcons today with Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
Wow.
I mean, I just saw the score. I mean, I don't even know what happened there, and especially I can't wait to watch the Falcons film, which is the next challenge, because I was ready to say, yeah, the Browns defense is good. The Falcons defense is better. At least they are statistically. I don't know what happened today. Apparently, Tua looked like vintage Joe Montana or something today. But, I'm mostly worried about the defense. That they didn't get a ton out of the edge today. Chason and Harold Landry, they were a little bit invisible from what I could tell. I sort of checked out in the fourth quarter and started writing. So, I think they're getting a little thin there. Keon White was inactive today, a healthy scratch. He's been completely MIA, just not with the program on the field this year. So, if Landry or Chason gets hurt, we saw this a few weeks ago when Chason was out. They didn't really have much, and Landry's a smaller guy who could wear down. So, I think it reinforcements at edge, linebacker, possibly cornerbacks to cover yourself when Carlton Davis has his usual month off for an injury. Those are the bigger concerns for me. As far as long-term, I think you just got to remember, Stefon Diggs isn't going to be here for the long term. So, what's it look like after that? I think, really you're just going to have to start drafting and developing guys. And if you don't get a contribution year one, sort of like Kyle Williams right now, if they step in at some point, that's sort of the plan for upgrading, I would say, the wide receivers. And also tight end. You're going to need a couple new tight ends very soon.
You're going to need a lot of stuff, but defensively, as you said, possible upgrades here at the places that you need some help. And we knew coming in, edge and linebacker was going to be not great. And I know you just took a shot at Carlton Davis here, but it's hard not to feel pretty good about the defensive backfield, the way that they're playing. Gonzalez was on lockdown again today. And
against who?
Against nobody real, but it was still fun to see
Jerry Jeudy, and
it was fun to see
the guy who was suspended, the rookie who didn't turn around in time to catch a ball today.
It's fun to see him yapping at Jerry Jeudy, but sure, he's been pretty solid, and I think continues to trend up. Marcus Jones continues to be really good here.
Awesome.
Yeah, all in all, again, there's a lot of pieces working. Spillane, after the first couple of weeks when he was having tackling issues, is all over the place and making a lot of plays. So there's more going on with this defense. And again, it's difficult to judge because you're just not playing good offenses here. But what's your level of confidence / concern with the way that the defense is playing currently after 7 weeks, after 8 weeks?
Like you said, it's hard to tell. Cam Ward looked like a Pro Bowler for a half. Dylan Gabriel looked like a Pro Bowler for a drive, and then looked like himself after that. It's tough to tell. I think, I do think that the Falcons are going to be challenging for them, especially if Penix comes back. They got a lot of talent on that defense, and it'll be interesting to see how they cover. Of course, they have Bijan Robinson. So, that's a really good test. They'll get the Bills again, where the Bills won't be napping on the Patriots this time. If they were the first time, they'll be ready for it. So, we'll see. They have some tests coming up, but, they're doing their job so far, just not a whole lot to go off of in terms of the challenges presented by the other team.
Yep. Any other takeaways we're missing from this game, Greg?
Oh, special teams outside of Borregales absolutely stunk. Behringer bombs a 61-yard touchback. I mean, he didn't even land it in green. It landed in the end zone. Like, what are we doing? Then he shanks a 15-yard punt that ends up costing them a touchdown. And then they didn't recover an onside kick because Austin Hooper got a little bit alligator arms. So, and they had 3 special teams penalties today. So outside of Borregales, who was great, what do you have? 3 for 3 on field goals or something like that. Great. Outside of that, special teams, stinky.
We didn't gush about Drake Maye enough. Is there anything particular today that you liked most about what he did turning it around in the third quarter?
Because we almost glossed over it. Drake Maye enough.
We didn't, because we just kind of gloss over it. He ends up with a 135 passer rating, 3 TDs, 280 yards. Statistically ends up being a good game, but it felt icky because they struggled in the first half. And so what are we missing here? I feel like we didn't talk about it enough.
I thought we talked about it plenty. We talked about how, he, sort of what I wrote today, what I wanted to see was Drake
8 of 8
being
in the second half.
Yeah. He had a perfect passer rating in the third quarter. It was great. One of the scoring drives was set up by the Spillane interception. Some of it was, Josh McDaniels scheming stuff wide open, but, Drake was great. I mean, like I said, the most impressive thing to me about Drake Maye today is that he gets dropped 6 times. Myles Garrett. Now, I didn't like him trying to stiff arm Myles Garrett, and, not throwing the ball away. And then whatever that slide was after his 28-yard gain, which he said even the guys on the sideline were making fun of him about, so it wasn't perfect, but you couldn't tell. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks. If Myles Garrett is in his ear hole every other play and dropping him, a lot of guys would get sped up. They would get flustered.
That's what I'm talking about.
He stayed even. Yeah. And I said that earlier.
Yeah. That's because that's what I'm trying to assess in my mind is like, are we glossing over it because we're used to seeing it now, glossing over it? Or was it super impressive because it was the first time you had something like that happening, which is you got somebody in his face messing with him, throwing off his rhythm, and it didn't go to pieces, I guess, which is the best thing that you can say about it, for this game. So, yeah, it just feels like it was, it's another 283 touchdown sort of game for Drake Maye. We do want to say before Greg goes that you should subscribe to Boston Sports Journal. If I can find it, there it is. Subscribe to both the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast and to Boston Sports Journal. $7 a month for Boston Sports Journal for the best sports coverage in town. You can get football coverage from both Greg Bedard and Mike Giardi, who also has a podcast, All 32, here on the CLNS Media Network. So make sure that you check that out and make sure you read everything that they have to say about today's game after they are done. We're going to say goodbye to Greg. Greg, thanks a lot for joining.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.